Hey Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, just near the English Channel. We're now getting a reputation for being a haven for spiritual seekers. So please welcome all of you out there in cyberspace. We hope that you're safe and well. Now it looks like there's some complications in regards to the variants of the COVID virus, which is causing more disruption. We hope that you're safe and healthy and yes, and happy. We're trying to increase that happiness by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, his major works at least, cover to cover. Today marks a very important day for us. It is the day when we're going to inaugurate the cover to cover reading of the magnum opus of Srila Prabhupada, the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It was his major work. The Srimad-Bhagavatam is the source of all of the other commentaries, of all the other sampradayas, all the sampradayas except the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and all the followers of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu base their works on the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which he spoke regularly from the Srimad-Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So this is a big day for us. The last time we read the Srimad-Bhagavatam in the daily readings, cover to cover, we were more traveling. Well, we spent more time in Houston and also some time here and in India. But in those places, we didn't always have a strong internet connection. So some of the videos were breaking up or maybe even some missing. But now we aim to record the Srimad-Bhagavatam cover to cover in as proper a way as we can, without any breaks, without any disturbances. So now we will recite every day, as we have been already, before we read the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Now we're reading the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is the book that is being glorified by Srila Sanatana Goswami by the Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. Wonderful glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam by the senior disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who spent 2 months straight teaching Srila Sanatana Goswami. And this is one of the results. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kali Dvanduditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshak Shadayate, Sarvada Savasevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka bando matsangin, madguro man mahadana, man nishtadaka mad bhagya, mad ananda namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu, saduta dayin, atini chochata kada, hanamun chagadachin mam, premna rit kantayok spura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So yesterday we chanted the whole Bhagavad Gita, Sanskrit and English, along with most of our Ekadasi rounds. So my voice is not perfect. Hare Krishna. Please forgive me for that. It'll take a couple of more days for it to come back to normal. So, we begin Srimad-Bhagavatam, the summum bonum of all the scriptures, the Shruti masquerading as Smriti. The Shrutis are co-eternal with Krishna. The sound vibrations that make up the Shrutis, they cannot be changed either in word or in sound. So the Srimad-Bhagavatam, as it says in the very beginning, Nigama kalpa taror galitam palam. It is the ripened fruit of the Nigama, the Shruti. Nigama means Shruti, and Agama means Smriti. The Smritis explain the Shruti, but they can be changed. They can be written by different people at different times, different devotees, and brought into this world. But the Shruti is eternal. And Sri Vyasadeva will find out later on in the first canto how he went into trance and he saw the Srimad-Bhagavatam and brought it into the world. So we're going to be true to our word and read this book cover to cover. Srila Prabhupada translated and commented on the first 9 cantos and the first 13 chapters of the 10th canto. And the rest of the book through the 10th canto to the 12th canto were completed by a group of my godbrothers, his disciples, Hridayananda Das Goswami, Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu, who I had the pleasure and privilege of working with closely. And the main editor was Dravida Prabhu. So we will start by reading the front matter as far as we can get today. Canto 1, Creation, Dedication. To Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, my spiritual master, on the 26th annual ceremony of his disappearance day, He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. Preface. We must know the present need of human society. And what is that need? Human society is no longer bounded by geographical. Human society is no longer bounded by geographical limits to particular countries or communities. Human society is broader than in the Middle Ages, and the world tendency is toward one state or one human society. The ideals of spiritual communism, according to Srimad-Bhagavatam, are based more or less on the oneness of the entire human society, nay, of the entire energy of living beings. The need is felt by great thinkers to make this a successful ideology. Srimad-Bhagavatam will fill this need in human society. It begins, therefore, with the aphorism of Vedanta philosophy, Janmad Yasya Yataha, to establish the ideal of a common cause. Human society at the present moment is not in the darkness of oblivion. It has made rapid progress in the fields of material comforts, education, and economic development throughout the entire world. But there is a pinprick somewhere in the social body at large, and therefore there are large-scale quarrels, even over less important issues. There is need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship, and prosperity with a common cause. Srimad-Bhagavatam will fill this need, for it is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. Srimad-Bhagavatam should be introduced also in the schools and colleges, for it is recommended by the great student devotee, Prahlad Maharaj, in order to change the demoniac face of society. Komara achadet pragyo dharman bhagavatan iha durlabang manusham janma tad apyadruvam artadam. Bhagavatam 7.6.1. Disparity in human society is due to lack of principles in a godless civilization. There is God, or the Almighty One, from whom everything emanates, by whom everything is maintained, and in whom everything is merged to rest. Material science has tried to find the ultimate source of creation very insufficiently, but it is a fact that there is one ultimate source of everything that be. Excuse me. This ultimate source is explained rationally and authoritatively in the beautiful Bhagavatam, or Srimad-Bhagavatam. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the transcendental science, not only for knowing the ultimate source of everything, but also for knowing our relation with Him and our duty toward perfection of the human society on the basis of this perfect knowledge. It is powerful reading matter in the Sanskrit language, and it is now rendered into English elaborately, so that simply by a careful reading, one will know God perfectly well, so much so that the reader will be sufficiently educated to defend himself from the onslaught of atheists. Over and above this, the reader will be able to convert others to accepting God as a concrete principle. Srimad-Bhagavatam begins with the definition of the ultimate source. It is a bona fide commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author, Srila Vyasadeva, and gradually it develops into 9 cantos up to the highest state of God realization. The only qualification one needs to study this great book of transcendental knowledge is to proceed step by step cautiously and not jump forward haphazardly, as with an ordinary book. It should be gone through chapter by chapter, one after another. The reading matter is arranged with its original Sanskrit text, its English transliteration, synonyms, translation, and purports, so that one is sure to become a God-realized soul at the end of finishing the first 9 cantos. The 10th canto is distinct from the first 9 cantos because it deals directly with the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. One will be unable to capture the effects of the 10th canto without going through the first 9 cantos. The book is complete in 12 cantos, each independent, but it is good for all to read them in small installments, one after another. And this is our goal of this reading, to do just that, on the order of Srila Prabhupada. May he empower us all to hear and understand according to our capacity. I must admit my frailties in presenting Srimad-Bhagavatam, but still, I am hopeful of its good reception by the thinkers and leaders of society on the strength of the following statement of Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.5.11. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishlokam abhadyavatyapi nam nyanantasya yashon kitani yat shrinvanti gayanti grinanti sadhavaha. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, and pastimes of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words, directed toward bringing a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Om Tat Sat. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, dated at Delhi, December 15th, 1962. Introduction. The conception of God and the conception of absolute truth are not on the same level. The Srimad-Bhagavatam hits on the target of the absolute truth. The conception of God indicates the controller, whereas the conception of the absolute truth indicates the summum bonum, or the ultimate source of all energies. There is no difference of opinion about the personal feature of God as the controller, because a controller cannot be impersonal. Of course, modern government, especially democratic government, is impersonal to some extent, but ultimately the chief executive head is a person, and the impersonal feature of government is subordinate to the personal feature. So without a doubt, whenever we refer to control over others, we must admit the existence of a personal feature. Because there are different controllers for different managerial positions, there may be many small gods. According to the Bhagavad Gita, any controller who has some specific extraordinary power is called a vibhutimat, sattva, or controller empowered by the Lord. There are many vibhutimat sattvas, controllers, or gods with various specific powers, but the absolute truth is one without a second. This Srimad-Bhagavatam designates the absolute truth, or the summum bonum, as the param satyam. The author of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva, first offers his respectful obeisances unto the param satyam, absolute truth. And because the param satyam is the ultimate source of all energies, the param satyam is the Supreme Person. The gods or controllers are undoubtedly persons, but the param satyam, from whom the gods derive powers to control, is the Supreme Person. The Sanskrit word Ishvara, controller, conveys the import of God. But the Supreme Person is called the Parameshvara, or the Supreme Ishvara. The Supreme Person, or Parameshvara, is the Supreme Conscious Personality. And because he does not derive any power from any other source, he is supremely independent. In the Vedic literatures, Brahma is described as the supreme god or head of all other gods like Indra, Chandra, and Varuna. But the Srimad-Bhagavatam confirms that even Brahma is not independent as far as his power and knowledge are concerned. He received knowledge in the form of the Vedas from the Supreme Person who resides within the heart of every living being. That Supreme Personality of Godhead knows everything, directly and indirectly. Individual, infinitesimal persons who are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality may know directly and indirectly everything about their bodies or external features. But the Supreme Personality knows everything about both his external and internal features. The words Janmadyasya suggest that the source of all production, maintenance, or destruction is the same Supreme Conscious Person. Even in our present experience, we can know that nothing is generated from inert matter. But inert matter can be generated. Even in our present experience, we can know that nothing is generated from inert matter. But inert matter can be generated from the living entity. For instance, by contact with the living entity, the material body develops into a working machine. Men with a poor fund of knowledge mistake the bodily machinery to be the living being. But the fact is that the living being is the basis of the bodily machine. The bodily machine is useless as long as the living spark is away from it. Similarly, the original source of all material energy is the Supreme Person. This fact is expressed in all the Vedic literatures, and all the exponents of spiritual science have accepted this truth. The living force is called Brahman, and one of the greatest acharyas, teachers, namely Sripad Shankaracharya, has preached that Brahman is substance, whereas the cosmic world is category. The original source of all energies is the living force, and he is logically accepted as the Supreme Person. He is therefore conscious of everything, past, present, and future, and also of each and every corner of his manifestations, both material and spiritual. An imperfect being does not even know what is happening within his own personal body. He eats his food, but does not know how this food is transformed into energy or how it sustains his body. When a living being is perfect, he is aware of everything that happens. And since the Supreme Person is all perfect, it is quite natural that he knows everything in all detail. Consequently, the perfect personality is addressed in the Srimad-Bhagavatam as Vasudeva, or one who lives everywhere in full consciousness and in full possession of his complete energy. All of this is clearly explained in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and the reader has ample opportunity to study this critically. In the modern age, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu preached the Srimad-Bhagavatam by practical demonstration. It is easier to penetrate into the topics of the Srimad-Bhagavatam through the medium of Sri Chaitanya's causeless mercy. There is a short sketch of his life and precepts. Therefore, a short sketch of his life and precepts is inserted herein to help the reader understand the real merit of Srimad-Bhagavatam. It is imperative that one learn the Srimad-Bhagavatam from the person Bhagavatam. The person Bhagavatam is one whose very life is Srimad-Bhagavatam in practice. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the absolute personality of Godhead, he is both Bhagavan and Bhagavatam, in person and in sound. Therefore, his process of approaching the Srimad-Bhagavatam is practical for all people of the world. It was his wish that the Srimad-Bhagavatam be preached in every nook and corner of the world by those who happened to take their birth in India. The Srimad-Bhagavatam is the science of Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, of whom we have preliminary information from the text of the Bhagavad Gita. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that anyone, regardless of what he is, who is well versed in the science of Krishna, Srimad-Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, can become an authorized preacher or preceptor in the science of Krishna. There is need for the science of Krishna in human society for the good of all suffering humanity of the world. And we simply request the leaders of all nations to pick up this science of Krishna for their own good, for the good of society, and for the good of all the world's people. A short sketch of the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the preacher of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great apostle of love of God and the father of the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord, admitted himself in Sridham Mayapur, a quarter of the then city of Navadvip in Bengal, on the Palguni Purnima evening in the year 1407 Shakabda, corresponding to February 18th, 1486 by the Christian calendar. His father, Sri Jagannath Mishra, a learned Brahmana from the district of Sylhet, came to Navadvip as a student because at that time Navadvip was considered to be the center of education and culture. He domiciled on the banks of the Ganges after marrying Srimati Shachi Devi, a daughter of Srila Nilambar Chakrabarti, the great learned scholar of Navadvip. Jagannath Mishra had a number of daughters by his wife Srimati Shachi Devi, but they all expired at an early age. The two surviving sons, Sri Vishwarupa and Vishwambar, became at last the object of their parental affection. The 10th child and youngest son, Vishwambar, later became known as Nimai Pandit, and then, after accepting the renounced order of life, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his transcendental activities for 48 years and then disappeared from this mortal world in the year 1455, Shakabda, at Puri. For his first 24 years, he remained at Navadvip as a student and householder. His first wife was Srimati Lakshmi Priya, who died at an early age when the Lord was away from home. When he returned from East Bengal, he was requested by his mother to accept a second wife, and he agreed. His second wife was Srimati Vishnupriya Devi, who bore the separation of the Lord throughout her life, because the Lord took the order of sannyas at the age of 24, when Srimati Vishnupriya was barely 16 years old. After taking sannyas, the Lord made his headquarters at Jagannath Puri, due to the request of his mother, Srimati Shachi Devi. The Lord remained for 24 years at Puri. For 6 years of this time, he traveled continuously all over India, and especially throughout southern India, preaching the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya not only preached the Srimad-Bhagavatam, but propagated the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita as well, in the most practical way. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna is depicted as the absolute personality of Godhead, and his last teachings in that great book of transcendental knowledge instruct that one should give up all other modes of religious activities and accept him, Lord Sri Krishna, as the only worshipable Lord. The Lord then assured that all his devotees would be protected from all sorts of sinful acts, and that for them there would be no cause for anxiety. Unfortunately, despite Lord Sri Krishna's direct order and the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, less intelligent people misunderstood him to be nothing but a great historical personality, and thus they cannot accept him as the original personality of Godhead. Such men with a poor fund of knowledge are misled by many non-devotees. Thus, the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita was misinterpreted even by great scholars. After the disappearance of Lord Sri Krishna, there were hundreds of commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita by many erudite scholars, and almost every one of them was motivated by self-interest. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the self-same Lord Sri Krishna. This time, however, he appeared as a great devotee of the Lord in order to preach to the people in general, as well as to religionists and philosophers, about the transcendental position of Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord and the cause of all causes. The essence of this preaching is that Lord Sri Krishna, who appeared at Brajabhumi, Vrindavan, as the son of the king of Braja, Nanda Maharaj, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is therefore worshipable by all. Vrindavan Dham is non-different from the Lord because the name, fame, form, and place where the Lord manifests himself are all identical with the Lord as absolute knowledge. Therefore, Vrindavan Dham is as worshipable as the Lord. The highest form of transcendental worship of the Lord was exhibited by the damsels of Vrajabhumi in the form of pure affection for the Lord. And Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu recommends this process as the most excellent mode of worship. He accepts the Srimad-Bhagavatam Purana as the spotless literature for understanding the Lord, and he preaches that the ultimate goal of life for all human beings is to attain the stage of prema, or love of God. Many devotees of Lord Chaitanya, like Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, Sri Lochan Das Thakur, Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, Sri Kavi Karnapur, Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. And in this later age, within 200 years, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana, Sri Shyamananda Goswami, Sri Narottam Das Thakur, Sri Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and at last, Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our spiritual master, and many other great and renowned scholars and devotees of the Lord have prepared voluminous books and literatures on the life and precepts of the Lord. Such literatures are all based on the Shastras, like the Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and other histories and authentic literatures approved by the recognized acharyas. They are unique in composition and unrivaled in presentation, and they are full of transcendental knowledge. Unfortunately, the people of the world are still ignorant of them, but when these literatures, which are mostly in Sanskrit and Bengali, come to light the world, and when they are presented before thinking people, then India's glory and the message of love will overflood this morbid world, which is vainly searching after peace and prosperity by various illusory methods not approved by the acharyas in the chain of disciplic succession. The readers of this small description of the life and precepts of Lord Chaitanya will profit much to go through the books of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, and Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. The early life of the Lord is most fascinatingly expressed by the author of Chaitanya Bhagavat, and as far as the teachings are concerned, they are more vividly explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now they are available to the English-speaking public in our teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And this was written in 1962, by the way, before the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita was published in 1975. So now that Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is also available. So at 7:45, we're going to stop here. So we're starting on the paragraph beginning, the Lord's early life was recorded. All right, even though we've just touched the front matter of this book, there was such deep understanding of life and the world and so many things. So please, I ask our assembled sages if something stuck out in them, any questions they may have had in these first pages of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, please be our guests.
First is from Bhaktamatsu.
Haribo Bhaktimatsu.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, Hare Krishna Maharaj, what a wonderful occasion.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to make one comment, or rather an elaboration on a comment I made at the beginning, and that is that this Bhagavatam is considered to be Shruti. This is not an ordinary comment. This comment comes from Sri Jiva Goswami in his Tattva Sandarbha. So we're not coming to that conclusion just by some speculative method. It's actually passed down to us from Jiva Goswami, and I heard it elaborately from Gopi Paranadana Prabhu, who I was fortunate enough to work very closely with in editing the Brihat Bhagavatamrita under the guidance of Jayadvaita Swami. Hare Krishna. Okay, what else?
From Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Gopakanya Devi Dasi, Hare Krishna.
She says, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, happy to have you back. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Ho.
Jai Ho, Hare Krishna.
She has more here also. Dear Maharaj, I don't have enough words to say how much I am fortunate to be in your daily reading service, association of Srila Prabhupada's books. All my humble, heart-filled gratitude to you. I am eternally indebted to you. All glories to this divine service. Jai Ho.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for those lovely and encouraging, empowering words. I will take it very seriously, and I will keep on doing this for the rest of my life. Hare Krishna. By your blessings.
And from Gopal Roy.
Haribo Gopal Roy, Hare Krishna. I was hoping we'd have you here on the first day of hearing the Bhagavatam together.
This preface and introduction is brilliant. I like the way Srila Prabhupada gives the clear definition of what is meant by the absolute truth. Someone could deny the existence of God, usually because they have a misconception, but any person has to admit there is a source of all energies. And as Prabhupada says, the living spark of consciousness is superior to dull matter. Therefore, the source of everything must also have consciousness.
Yes.
He must be a person.
Yes.
And a person has senses.
Yes.
There is absolutely no literature or education that matches Prabhupada's books throughout the world.
Correct.
Thank you again, Maharaj, for holding our hand and being our guide as we travel through the Srimad-Bhagavatam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Gopal Roy. Thank you for that enlightening reflection. Very, very nice. Thank you. And I think Rasika Sharmani has something. Just hand it to me.
Just a very quick observation. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. I don't know if I'm the only one that noticed that the signing of the dedication, today, December 15th, is the 59th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada signing that dedication.
Oh.
To the day.
To the day.
December 15th.
Well, it isn't to the day because it's on the Vedic calendar, it's the lunar calendar, so that day will be on a different day.
Mm-hmm.
But it's true, it's significant that it's almost symbolic that it's on the same day. But that day would be different for this year.
I see. The calendar
Lunar
calendar
calendar.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I see. Same Western date, though.
Yeah, same Western date.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
From Krishnangi Mulder.
Krishnangi Mulder, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I am glad and grateful to be back with you all. Thank you, Maharaj, for preparing us for the journey, digging deeper into the heart.
Hare Krishna, thank you. May it be so.
From Bhaktarupa.
Haribo Bhaktarupa, hope your health is better.
Thank you, Maharaj. Very excited to embark on this voyage with you. I'd never before heard that Mahaprabhu had a number of older female siblings that were lost. I know there are some similarities between Krishna's childhood pastimes and Mahaprabhu's. I wondered if there might be some transcendental link between Krishna's lost older siblings and Mahaprabhu's.
It's exactly the same. The pastimes of Lord Caitanya and the pastimes of Krishna are exactly the same. They don't look the same physically, but they are the same. So I don't remember whether the souls that appeared as the daughters of Shachimata are the same souls as appeared in that Kamsa killed, the same sons that Kamsa killed before Krishna appeared. I'm sure that this information is there, but I don't recall it having read it. I wish I could give more detail. That's a very interesting point, and I'm sure that the answer to that is in the Acharya's commentaries, but let us read it all the way through and see what happens. Thank you.
Rati Manjari.
Haribo Rati.
She said, Jai Guru Maharaj, take us to the next level.
Hare Krishna.
And Anandamurti Devidasi.
Yes, Anandamurti.
Dear Guru Maharaj and all assembled devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for today's reading. I found that this Srimad-Bhagavatam is authorized by all parampara and so precious, so that we should convey to everyone.
Yes, and we want to restate and emphasize that the Srimad-Bhagavatam was written by Vyasadeva, who is the same author as the Vedanta Sutra. The Vedanta Sutra summarizes all the Upanishads and therefore the Vedas. And the Srimad-Bhagavatam is an explanation by the same author of the Vedanta Sutra. Most spiritual authorities in India who are under the heading of Vedantists are teaching from the Shariraka Bhashya commentary of Bhagavad Gita by Shankaracharya, the impersonalist point of view. So we can be sure, therefore, that the that the Vedanta Sutra is explained authoritatively and rationally and perfectly by Vyasadeva. Because, when a person writes a book, he's the one who best knows the book. You make a painting, any piece of art, the artist knows the meaning, knows what he wants to say. People interpret so many ways, and that may give them some pleasure, but it's the artist or the author himself who knows exactly what he's trying to say. So therefore, despite the literary output of Vyasadeva, editing the Vedas, he wasn't the author, but he edited the Vedas, organized them in a way that the fallen souls of the Kali Yuga could have access to them. And then the Upanishads, which were tacked on to the Vedas, the 4 Vedas, which explain the spiritual aspects of the Vedas, which are mainly materialistic, or dealing with the sacrificial rituals that are performed in order to gradually improve one's life, to enter into higher planets. And then, after doing all of that, which is more than any other single person has done on the earth, he didn't feel completely satisfied. We can't imagine how much literary output that is, but he still didn't feel satisfied. And just as he was feeling that, we'll read a little bit into the Bhagavatam, the first canto. First canto explains the prelude to the Bhagavatam, and that is the history of how Shukadeva Goswami came to meet Maharaj Parikshit and speak the Bhagavatam. So therefore, we should understand that if we stick to the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad-Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavad Gita appeared in the Mahabharata, which was also compiled by Vyasadeva. So these are the books that Vyasadeva actually compiled himself: Vedanta Sutra, Mahabharata, and the Srimad-Bhagavatam. But the Srimad-Bhagavatam came at the end, when he was the most mature. And Narada Muni was his initiating spiritual master, and he appeared to Vyasadeva just as Vyasadeva was feeling incomplete, and explained to him that although he mentions the absolute truth throughout his literatures, he never glorifies him exclusively in any part of his literatures, and therefore he's not satisfied. So then he suggested that he compile Srimad-Bhagavatam, and then Vyasadeva went into trance and saw the Bhagavatam and brought it into human society. So that's the history, and we should be therefore convinced by the actual authoritative truth of these historical events that we cannot become fully satisfied in our spiritual lives until we assimilate the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And it has to be done through the auspices of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna.
Next is from Radharaman.
Haribo Radharaman. Glad you're listening.
In the modern age, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached the Srimad-Bhagavatam by practical demonstration. It is easier to penetrate into the topics of the Srimad-Bhagavatam through the medium of Sri Chaitanya's causeless mercy. Therefore, a short sketch of his life and precepts is inserted herein to help the reader understand the real merit of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Interesting comment from Srila Prabhupada at the end of the introduction.
Yes. And nicely brought out by you, Radharaman, the sincere studier and preacher of the Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yes. Actually, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. They are non-different. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is acting as a devotee of himself to show us how to be a perfect devotee. And he brings all of his liberated associates from the spiritual world to interact with one another and him to show us exactly how we're supposed to behave with one another. So, therefore, it's extremely important, that we understand and accept Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, Nahi Anya. There is no difference between Lord Chaitanya and Radha and Krishna. Lord Chaitanya is the combined form of Radha and Krishna. He is Krishna in the mood and with the complexion of Srimati Radharani. And the mood of Srimati Radharani is to bring others to Krishna. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his incarnation, not an incarnation, sorry, but as Sri Chaitanya, as Sri Krishna, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, came to deliver love of God, love for Krishna, to the whole world, free, without the same qualifications that Lord Krishna demanded, that people surrender to him. He didn't make that demand. He just gave that love and the knowledge that carries that love to anyone he met and everyone he met. And therefore, we can be sure again that Srila Prabhupada, in his exposition of the Srimad-Bhagavatam and Caitanya Charitamrita, is the authorized representative of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who fulfilled the prophecy of Lord Chaitanya and of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the desire of theirs to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Therefore, we are beholding to Srila Prabhupada in such a profound way that I cannot express it. Hare Krishna.
From Bhakta Sebastian.
Hare Krishna, Bhakti Sebastian. I hope you're having a nice marathon.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I liked that Krishna is Bhagavan and Bhagavatam, because he embodies all qualities and teachings in person. So he is our supreme role model to follow. What I also remarked was that Prabhupada said that human civilization is not in the darkness of oblivion, as if we are not in Kali Yuga right now. Just this little bit of hopeful outlook and encouragement for the reader was really nice.
Yes, and another, I'd like to make a comment on that, and that is that Srila Prabhupada said because the education and the understanding of the way the world, the modes of nature work from a mechanistic point of view is more developed now than before. Therefore, people need a more systematic and scientific approach to God consciousness, which the modern day religions don't provide. And therefore, they are declining and Krishna consciousness is rising. So let us dedicate our lives to learning these books, the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad-Bhagavatam, and Caitanya Charitamrita especially, and to distribute that knowledge to others according to our capacity, or at least contribute to the effort of the spreading of this knowledge of devotional service to Krishna. And Krishna as being the summum bonum, the absolute truth, the source of everything. Hare Krishna. So thank you Sebastian. I hope you continue to grow and flourish in your devotional life, in giving out Srila Prabhupada's books. May you dedicate your life to that noble effort.
From Anandamurti Devidasi.
Hare Krishna, Anandamurti.
The day before yesterday was Gita Jayanti in Japan, and I have distributed 2 Bhagavad Gitas during working, another 3 during the lunch break on the street, and 5 after work with my daughter on the street. And yesterday, by your mercy, was my first day of my Bhagavad Gita class held in my restaurant, and 7 sincere people came.
Very nice.
And 6 people were totally new to reading Bhagavad Gita of Srila Prabhupada.
Very nice.
And they are very eager to study with full enthusiasm. I am praying I become your instrument and just tell your instruction.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. You couldn't have said anything that is more pleasing to me. That was perfect. A perfect life, working to maintain your family, and at the same time, on your breaks, to distribute the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's wonderful. Perfect example. Thank you so much. All right, it has begun. The recitation of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It is a real sacrificial performance. So buckle up and let us take this journey through all 12 cantos of Srimad-Bhagavatam, 18 volumes. If you read 41 pages a day, exactly, you will read the Srimad-Bhagavatam in exactly 1 year. So I don't know how many pages we read today, but it wasn't 41. So I'm sure it's going to take more than a year, but let us stay together and let us increase the number of persons who come to join us on this journey. But I would like to say that I feel very specially connected to all of you who are here for the first day, and I will be eternally indebted to those who stay every day and hear the Bhagavatam all the way through. Hare Krishna. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Brinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night. Same place, same time, same topic. The unfolding of Caitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in the introduction to the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow. Hari Bol.